The wait is finally over. Welcome back, of course, to the Oh No 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 podcast. It's all eyes on Arbroath. The Red Lifties are the surprise package in this season's championship, so we're going to be previewing the game. But before that, a little bit on the best game of association football to ever take place in the history of the game. 27 years. Having been crushed by Croatia in 2002, ill-fated against the Italians in 2006, disaster against the Dutch in 2010, battered by the Belgians in 2014, embarrassed by the English in 2018, understated against the Ukrainians for 2022. It's all in the past. Stevie Gray is chartering the flights to Canada, America and Mexico after Steve Clarke and his team dunted the Danes 4-2 at Hampden Park to end all that misery. I'm your host this evening, Robbie Weir, and of course, I'm as ever delighted to be joined by, firstly, Allan Douglasman. How you doing, Allan?
I'm still absolutely buzzing for Tuesday night, mate. It was I'm one of the guys on this podcast old enough to have seen Scotland at a couple of World Cups and going through the usual kind of level of glorious failure. Tuesday night was just absolutely epic, and to kind of keep us on topic a little bit, just a really, really good distraction from the utter shit show that Rovers have been this season. So, brilliant. Still absolutely buzzing, mate.
We're joined in Barcelona. I mean, used to the free-flowing football, but we're in our France 98 Top of Pride. We've got Carol Smith. How you doing, Carol?
I'm all right as well. Absolutely buzzing. I think at some point during the evening I might have messaged the group chat of I hate football. I don't. I love the game. It's the best game on there. It's absolutely wonderful. All is forgiven.
You would say that after watching your team win probably the greatest game that's ever taken place, ever. Just going all the way back to the 19th century. And then in the Netherlands, we've got Scott Fleming. How are you getting on, Scott?
If you'd asked me before the game on Tuesday, I would have told you it was one of the worst sporting weekends that I've had in a long time. With the nonsense that went on last weekend, but thankfully the Scotland team pulled through and got us to the World Cup, and to say I was in bits come full time would be understating it. It was just unbelievable, and here was me just in the apartment myself, and yeah, this part of the Hague I think found out that Scotland won pretty quickly.
Yeah, just a sonic boom going out across across that part of the Netherlands. So yeah, I mean, I'm calling it the best game ever. Arguments for the best Scottish goals ever for the nation. So yeah, I'll give it to you, Scott. Just your take on that 97 plus minutes of football, depending on what you're talking about the referee adding on. We'll come back to the Rovers, of course, in a bit. But yes, we'll focus on the Scotland game for now. What did you make of the overall experience for you?
I mean, I think for the first, well, basically all the way up until 2-2, I would say that it was such a typical last game decider for Scotland when it comes to World Cup qualifiers, in my lifetime anyway. Like, it's so many hardline stories, glorious failure, we just can't quite get there. And I mean, to be fair to Denmark, I thought they played really well, and they passed the ball well, they created chances. We kind of, once Scan and Doak went off, obviously, we struggled a fair bit in terms of getting up the pitch. But going back to the goals, like, I mean, genuinely, in one game, are you going to get 3 world-class finishes like that in one game? And it's more the fact that it means something as well. It's not like in a game that doesn't mean anything and there's nothing on the line, or you don't even win the game or whatever. I mean, it's 3 goals to win you the game to get you to the World Cup. Like, there's nothing any better than that, other than obviously going and winning the tournament. But I think other than that, we couldn't have asked any more. I mean, McTominay's one, I think they've went on record to say that, since like all these stats have been recorded, that's the sort of the highest height that an overhead kick's ever been scored at in a competitive game, which is also just makes it even better. I mean, and we know.
He lined that up. He was thinking of that before the ball was past him.
That's McFadden came out and said, I think it was yesterday, saying it's the fact, the audacity in the 3rd minute of the game. It's not even like last ditch. It's like 3rd minute, and he's actually meant it. And you're like, What on earth made him think, oh, Ken, what? I'm not even going ahead of this. I'm just going to throw myself up in the air, bicycle kick. And it's got to be up in the top 2 or 3 goals that Scotland have ever scored. Obviously, the older generation might go to like Archie Gemmell's goal, all that sort of stuff. Up until now, it was James McFadden for me. I think McTominay's usurps that by a mile.
Yeah, I was listening to the daily sort of podcast that the Guardian do, because after Tuesday I effectively was like one of those things where it just consumes your life and you're kind of just like, where can I get next information about this, and like listen to a different take. I was patiently waiting for the Terrace to release their episode, which, by the way, go and listen to that, because Craig Telfer's got, as a podcast that we enjoy our introductions, Craig Telfer's introduction in that, absolutely sublime. And also as well,
it was good.
And him talking about that fourth goal. But yeah, I was listening to the Guardian's podcast about it, and just they were saying, in terms of, what is it, the Trevor Sinclair scale that they've got, I think they had it on a sort of 7 out of 10, just for the simple fact that it didn't go into the top corner. But you can't take anything away from it, because it was such a good strike, and it was only one of 3 incredible strikes. Alan, what was your emotions going through that game?
Oh, it was just incredible. I mean, it was. I mean, I take my wee man Cameron to a lot of football. He's a typical 10-year-old. The attention span's not great. You know, he'll be on his phone a lot of the time watching it. He was glued to that game the whole way through. I think he knew kind of what was riding on it. The McTominay goal, the other half was in the kitchen. I don't know what she was doing at the time. We were in the living room watching it, and she came through to see what was going on just because of the noise that I made. It was. I can't even describe them. It was just not just because we'd scored early, but just because of the goal itself. It was just, she was just like, what? And she watched it and she was like, oh wow, that's impressive. She did think he had daft hair, but you know, I'm not going to comment on that. But just the overall thing, Scotland have scored a lot of good goals in the past. You know, McFadden's was great. Sean Maloney's against Ireland. Another McFadden one against the Netherlands when we thought we had a chance of qualifying, only to get utterly battered in the second leg. Alan McCoist against Switzerland, the Euro 96. Going way back, even Archie Gemmell's in 78. None of them really meant anything because we didn't achieve anything from them. And I think that's a point Craig Telfer made today, actually. It really adds to it the fact that like these goals actually took us to a World Cup. And I'm not normally a huge fan of Blair McNally's. Some of his videos are okay, some are not so good. But he was in the upper tier of the South Stand for the game on Tuesday. And he put a video on at the end when Gala, Freed from Desire was on, and just seeing the whole of the North Stand bouncing up, and it's genuinely incredible. Like, just watching it again, I had a massive grin on my face and tears running down my eyes again. It was just incredible. And I've seen a lot of people kind of commenting on about how, England fans just don't get it because it's a procession for them. They didn't concede a goal in this qualifying campaign. They just don't understand what that feels like. Yeah, it's kind of like that's the international equivalent of, Celtic fans not understanding how we feel winning like the Challenge Cup or something, because it's so shit the rest of the time that when you get one little moment like that, it is incredible. I'm genuinely still just talking about this again. It's getting, I could feel it in my stomach again. It's just brilliant, man.
Yeah, it's I always look at the overall discussion with Scottish football, and it's always interesting to me the way that it gets framed. As sometimes it's like being portrayed as being really down. Now, I think Scotland qualifying for a World Cup, it was Mike Mulroney, the ex-Alloa chairman, was in the press. He was sort of talking because he's high up in the SFA now, and he was saying it's going to get into the World Cup should, in theory, bring in an 8-figure sum, I think, for the game in Scotland. But when you look at things like the highest attendance per capita in Europe, you look at the Scotland national team, again, it took a little while. There was a period with a little bit of a drop off in terms of the crowds maybe not selling out Hampden or getting very close to it. But you think before Steve Clarke, when we were getting to these tournaments and pre-COVID, where it wasn't uncommon to see Hampden Park like half empty in terms of games even for qualifiers. When the big teams came to town, you would fill up, but now it's completely changed. Carol, you've spent some time across your sort of career working in the theatre. The common thing to say would be you couldn't write a script, but is this pretty much a script writer's wet dream, basically, this match?
Well, completely, because I mean, even when we went 3-2 up, there was still that we can fuck this up, can't we? We can. We're gonna let in a crappy last minute equaliser, and it's just going to break everybody's hearts. And that was the script. You could see the headlines, but then when it was that, you just on the halfway line, and you could hear in the commentary somebody shouting "shoot."
Yeah, Stephen Thompson.
Yeah, I was on my feet going no, and then and my boyfriend commented today. He says, "When did they blow the whistle?" I said, "I don't even know if the ref blew the whistle at the end. I was done. I was out on my terrace running around screaming."
There's so many videos for pubs where you can see folks shouting at the telly, "Get to the corner! What's he doing? What's he doing?" And then just going absolutely batshit crazy. It's just brilliant.
There's one that's brilliant. I can't find it, which is really annoying, but it's fantastic because it's like you can see a TV in the background, but they've got it up on a projector and someone from the pub's filming it. And everyone's obviously doing, as you say, they're screaming like, "Get to the corner," etc. But you can sort of see the eyes widen because of the TV angle. I know this has been mentioned elsewhere, but people on the ground and people that watched on TV must have had very different experiences because in the ground you're probably looking at Schmeichel saying, "He is so far out, like, just be gallus, have a go for it." Whereas people on the TV, you see Kenny McLean of all people drop a shoulder and beat his man. Firstly, that's something that I don't know how often he's done that in his career. Give him his dues, Kenny McLean. I know Jock McGinn said it in his interview that he gets sometimes the criticism he gets is a bit over the top, but drops the shoulder, and because of the TV angle, naturally you can't see that half of the pitch where Schmeichel is. But the video in the pub's funny because you sort of see this moment of realisation, the sort of penny drop of the eyes going like, "Oh." And it's like that might go in, and just gradually, millisecond by millisecond, it just becomes like more and more apparent. Like it's about to hit the back of the net. I just started laughing. I was at my girlfriend's. I had it. I let her have the TV, and I was watching it on my phone, and just had it on silent, and just like started jumping about. It was absolutely class.
I actually remember like on like first viewing as it was happening live, hearing Stephen Thompson shout "shoot," and I'm like, "What are you on about? No, oh." And Craig Telfer described it perfectly when he was talking about his experience. When he's like, you kind of grab onto the sleeve of the person next to you, and just about every video I've seen for pubs or from inside the stadium, you can see people kind of doing that, like grabbing on. They're like, "What? No, what?" And man, do we have to talk about Rovers?
We'll get there eventually, but I think that we've got a lot more mileage in this Scotland game, so we're going to be all right. Yeah, I my best friend, he works up in St Leonard's, one of the schools up in St Andrews. He's a Rovers fan, but doesn't listen to the podcast. And he goes to. We used to go to a lot of the Scotland games, but cut back on it quite recently. Regrettable choice, by the way. But he basically went with his work and took a bunch of like international school kids down, and they were loving it. They were obviously like, it's an experience of all experiences. But I'm so happy that my pal got to go along because like he's one of these people where it's not like going to the major tournaments or something. It's obviously local. It's easy to go to, relatively speaking, if you've got a car or you've got a bus, etc. And just the experience there. I've been able to see that at the ground, and like you mentioned, that sort of. I know Craig Telfer touched on it, and to cover the ground that he's already said, it is that kind of like you're grabbing onto someone because you think you're going to fly away. Like it's just it's that high. Scott and Carol, got a question for yourself, just individually. I'll ask you both the same question. Scott, I'll start with you. Just being an expat, in terms of like you're staying over in Holland. The experience for you, is it just nice to have that connection back home? I mean, you've obviously got the football, you come on the podcast, you'll talk about Rovers, but also as well the international side, where just being able to have that sort of that sense of pride because I'd imagine that you'll have quite a lot of people as well sort of noticing it and commenting on it about the sort of finish to the game. So what was that? What's it been like through your eyes?
I mean, these days, I think it's pretty easy to obviously keep tabs on Rovers, Scotland, all football, to be honest, these days. The fact that you've got social media and you've got all these, like Rave TV, I can get iPlayer and all that sort of stuff. So it's easy enough to watch all these things, but like, yeah, of course you would want to. I mean, I wouldn't have had probably a ticket for the game if I was back at home, but I would have likely been in a pub with my mates or whatever like that. So that's the only difference, I suppose, is the fact that it was a Tuesday night, so I was just in my apartment watching it. But it was still just you. I mean, I feel just as Scottish as anybody else. You're never gonna. I'm never gonna feel any different than that, and so it just. Well, somebody my age anyway, I'm just coming up for 30 next year, so I was 2 when we were at France. I was 2, so I don't even have any recollection in the World Cup in '98. And so, and my dad actually, so I FaceTimed my dad when he got home for the pub on Tuesday night. And the first thing that he said when he got home, he was watching at the Abbots Hall actually. And they had a bunch of guys that were probably early 20s, he said. And he says that just the sheer elation for them, he was just like, he's so happy for like my generation because he's like, none of yous know what it's like going to a World Cup. So he's like, and he's been hoping for ages that so it's just stuff like that again, that you're just like hoping for it to happen at some point. And every World Cup qualification, it seems to be like one game does us, and that's it. And you're just like, well, we'll have to wait for another 3 years again to attempt it again. But But as you say, like, I just think these days it's easy enough to keep tabs with everything back at home. I mean, the Rovers side of things as well. Rave TV are arguably outside of maybe top 4 or 5 clubs in the country. We're probably no far off them in terms of how good a package we can offer with the commentary, the video coverage. Obviously, the highlights package is as good as it gets in Scotland as well. So, like, I can't complain when it comes to somebody being an international person watching my club and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I think social media nowadays gets like such a bad rap in terms of like, and understandable for a lot of it. Like you see some of the stuff even today, and there's some of the comments that are getting made seem chucked about the place. And there's definitely a negative side in the sense of like people can remain anonymous and people can say this and that, and there's a lack of accountability. But also at the same time, you get things like group chats with your pals, where if you are an expat, then you get that link in, and I would imagine you've got the connection to be able to go and watch these games. And Carol, what was it like for you as well? Just in the same sort of question, in the same sense.
Oh, during the match, I had about 3 or 4 WhatsApp groups going, just with like my family back going, what is this? And my sister, who's not normally a football fan, was just tuning in, and then gradually she was like, what's going on? And then she was all against the ref. The ref was several bad words towards the end. And then just at the end, and I think that's the thing with social media and with the group chats is maybe 10 years ago, you would watch Wraith TV, but you were kind of on your own when you celebrated. Whereas now you can kind of just... Social media is a horrible place, but between Tuesday and today, there's been a lovely little corner that has just been those goals on repeat, the commentary on repeat, and people's celebrations on repeat. And it's nice. Between that and cat videos, what's wrong with the world?
100%. I've enjoyed going into work, particularly the last couple of days, because it's funny to see people who had no interest in football a week ago suddenly talk about seedings and World Cup pots and who we might get and
that's
who's
what
going
being
to
in
be
a
the
World
best
Cup
draw.
is. I mean, that's what those goals meant. The 98 World Cup, I was still in high school, and my dad said you can have an unofficial day off because this is not going to happen very often, and we're going to go to the Burnt Island Co-op and we're going to get some supplies and we're going to watch this game properly. And yeah, and on Tuesday night, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to have a summer where it means something. I mean, when Scotland beat Spain, yes, I was a smug bastard for like 3 or 4 days. But the last couple of days, this has been a high. And on Wednesday morning, my first clients were Argentinian. And he had the McTominay goal as his background. He was ready for me. He was like, I am so happy. And I not meant to wear football tops at work, but I was wearing that on Wednesday morning. And then getting like the messages just from random friends of going, oh, we've seen that Scotland qualify. And then, oh my God, we've seen the goals.
It's just going to be really
amazing.
good for the whole country. In terms of football, I think you'll actually see for the rest of this season, the Premiership mostly, I think it'll really lift because so many players are going to be thinking, well, it's quite a big squad. If I have a good last 6-7 months, I've maybe got a wee chance here. Most of them won't because Steve Clarke doesn't like to change things up that much, and rightly so. Now I'll have to say, but we'll do that.
All is forgiven. We're never seeing anything bad again.
Then during the World Cup itself, it's going to be so good for the economy, as Robbie mentioned earlier on. Pubs are going to be absolutely heaving. Although, albeit the kick-off times are looking like they're going to be really shit because they're worried about the temperatures in Mexico and the southern US in particular. But then next season, how many kids who have watched Scotland in the World Cup over the summer are going to be like, I really like football now. Dad, can you take me to a game? And you should
100%.
hopefully see kids who have not been that interested starting to come along, start to go and try and maybe play for their local teams. It genuinely gives the whole country a lift. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I was 9 when Scotland last got to a World Cup, and that was exactly the same for me. I was saying to Carol, like, my first ever football kit's the one that's obviously she's got the same kit there, which is the Scotland France '98 one. I didn't have really much of an interest before, and then my friend's dad took me along to a game, and you get free tickets from the school. But you see the '98 World Cup, and I remember being in my friend's garden when John Collins scored, and then stuff like my auntie who's no longer with us, and this is where it gets a bit like emotional in the sense of like my auntie who's no longer with us taking me to the postings, rest in peace to that as well, to the big Tesco there, rest in peace to that, where got a World Cup sticker book out, the wee newsagent's bit at the bottom, and she was buying, like, you got the packs of like World Cup bubble gum that had the player stickers in them and stuff like that. And you think back to that, and you think, like, actually that is like one of those moments that you do look back and like treasure, and you think it's been such a long period of time, and so many events have gone past, but also as well the people that have gone from your life, or the people that have came into your life, like you mentioned. You've got like Scott says, like a younger generation who've never had that experience of seeing Scotland at a World Cup. It's always been this glorious failures, and it's always been this hard luck story, and you get to the end of a qualifying, and then you've inevitably got English fans just sitting there ready to rip the piss. Quite rightfully so, I'm going to say, just on the basis that we completely do it back whenever they get knocked out of a tournament. It's natural, it's football. I do want to give a shout out to someone who's got, I don't even know the podcast exists, but in a department of about 35 people, we have one Danish girl who came in, and to be fair to her, she took it like so well. She was like, you know what? I was mixed emotions because I want Denmark to do well and get to the World Cup, but also I've got a side that does want to see Scotland do well. So fair play to her, that she was so just accepting in terms of the constant chatter about Scottish football that was taking place at my work.
It's going to be nice to be able to follow a team that's not just the shitty team that you got in the work sweepstake.
Yeah, that too.
Like Costa Rica, that's going to go really well. I might as well say bye to my tenor.
Sorry,
I'm only interested in Cape Verde if Willis Furtado gets called up to the national team, which there is still a possibility of.
No way.
There is still a possibility. He's still playing. He's in Serie D in Italy, so
you
never know.
Because you know we'll get them and he'll score against us, man.
It would be
more importantly, it's going to be a Should McStay or Should Dargo clue that Les is going to have fun with for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that is very true. Allan, just to come back to you, I know that we're kind of milking this, and people will be like, right, when are they actually going to talk about the Rovers game? But what's it like for you?
On Spotify and stuff, if you're not interested.
Yeah, I'll come back. I'll mark it, but this could be a long one. Allan, just for you, obviously you've got, as you say, you've got your young lad, you've got your young kids, got a family. What's that like for you, just having the opportunity to sort of go into a World Cup with that this time around. Obviously, you were saying in a group chat before you were pulling pints, I believe, the last time for the Scotland Brazil game. So it's a bit of a different experience this time round.
Yeah, I was at uni in Aberdeen when we were in the last World Cup. So yeah, my second ever shift behind the bar was the Scotland Brazil game, and it's probably still the busiest I've ever been working behind the bar. It was just absolutely crazy. But still got to see it all. And then watching the other games in the Student Union, it was just very different from Tuesday night. But it was, and you know what? I'd be lying if I said there wasn't part of me that kind of wished I was in a pub with a bunch of mates watching that kind of, or even at the stadium. But just to experience a moment of that with Cameron, he's going to be 10 the first time he sees Scotland in a World Cup. I was 10 in Italia 90, which is the earliest one I remember. I don't really remember Mexico 86, and I was 2 in Spain 82, so I really don't remember that. So it's kind of, there's something quite nice about that he's going to be the same age I was, and I remember just being totally blown away by the whole thing. What 10-year-old likes opera, but as soon as I heard Nessun Dorma, I was like, excellent, there's more World Cup coming on. It was some really, really good memories, other than Scotland getting beat by Costa Rica. That wasn't such a great memory, but thankfully they're not there this time. But yeah, so to be sharing that with Cameron, and especially by next summer he'll be nearly 11 by that point actually. So just the older he gets, the more he gets into it, and it's going to be really, really special. I think kind of watching. Hopefully, there's not too many Scotland games late at night on a school night. I suppose it's summer holidays mostly in it, so it's going. I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait. It's just a pity we've got 7 months of watching Rovers to get away first, but.
I had to correct someone at my work because they were like, it's next June that the World Cup is, and I was like, it's June and July for Scotland because we're going to go all the way. We're winning the whole thing, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's it.
Against Denmark, then
the finals on the second day of my bowling club's Pro-Am, so we're having to kind of worry about whether we're going to have to cancel it because with Scotland being in the final,
But if you do want to go back to a legacy from France 98, you only need to go back to Carnival de Paris, which is still continues to get used in football chants across the world. Just to come back to yourself, Scott, post-match Andy Robertson has a bit of an interview where he talks about Diogo Jota and sort of his passing in the summer and the experience that he had and how much it's meant to him to be able to reach that with his country. Just what did you make of that? Just sort of being able to see the human side. I know that the Scott Brown came into a bit of flack to finally bring it into some Rovers chat, and I know that we had a bit of a discussion about this in the group, and a lot was made out of it on Twitter. But just seeing that sort of human aspect in terms of the player, and that reminder that these are guys that have lives, they've obviously got experiences, and just. What were your thoughts about the whole situation there?
Well, obviously it was it's due to a horrific incident that was brought up, but I think you could tell that clearly Robbo and Jota were obviously really close in amongst that Liverpool squad, and how he said that they literally just would constantly talk about World Cups and for their national teams, and you could tell that Robbo is just one of these guys that's always cared so much when he's pulled on that Scotland jersey, and rightfully so was named captain when he was as well, because he was one of these guys that has just always done as good as he can, always is trying to, if he's fit enough, he's there. He's not one of these guys that were kind of, we're not doing great, so I've got a bit of niggle, so I'm not going to turn up this time. Like, we've had so many guys over in my lifetime anyway that have done that, where it's like, I've got a wee niggle, so I'm just to make sure that I'm going to be all right for my club team, I'm going to pull out of this one and stuff like that. But no, and Robbo is just that sort of top class guy as well. Like he's just somebody that you felt sorry, obviously, for him because of what the situation that happened, but at the same time, yeah, I just so glad for that whole squad of players and obviously just the country in general. But yeah, it is nice to see these sort of things in interviews, even though it is for a bad reason that he's had to bring it up. But you also wonder if there was, like, nobody knows. That's more brought up because it's a high-profile incident.
Yeah.
We don't know if there's anybody else in the squad that have had, like, family members and all that sort of stuff, that maybe they had their own sort of stories that were going on in their head in the lead up as well with their families. So yeah, it was a really nice touch from Robbie to mention that and to bring it up and to let everyone know what he was thinking in the build up to the game and during the game and all that sort of stuff. And it would have been terrible as well if, for instance, if that game finished 1-1 and it was his penalty given away, that, and I mean, it wasn't like necessarily where everybody would have blamed just Robbo for not getting to the World Cup, but it just would have been that little bit in the back of his head, I would imagine, where he's going, oh, I've given away the penalty that stopped us going to the World Cup. So I'm also glad for that side of thing that it wasn't down to that, because it also wasn't a penalty because it wasn't in the box, but it's, as I say, it was just a really nice short interview, and it was good to hear that sort of side, and that he clearly, and when we get to the World Cup next year, I'm sure he'll be thinking about him yet again, and just that he'll be watching him from wherever he is as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that just that human aspect, as I say, it's like sometimes I think it can be quite easy to look and you remove yourself, because obviously, especially at that level of football, like the players aren't people that you see on a regular basis, and it's quite easy to forget that there is that aspect to it. As you mentioned, just such a tough one, but really emotional for him to do it. I did think it was funny when he was talking to Kenny Dalglish's daughter in the interview, and he's like, I need to catch up with your dad for a glass of wine when I get back down to Liverpool. I thought that was a class touch.
Scott McTominay when he was looking for his mum.
Oh aye.
That
brilliant.
Was, yeah.
I
think it's those moments that it's sometimes forgotten that footballers are human and it's a job, and they are also fans.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what is that when the game finished on Tuesday night, they were not only happy as players, they were ecstatic as young fans who have never seen a team at the World Cup.
Absolutely.
Great body,
absolutely. My favourite interview, actually, none of the players, and not on the day of the game. It was Ray Bradshaw when he got interviewed on Sky Sports News. I think it was the following day. And they were saying how he felt. And he goes, you know, the most impressive thing about it all is we actually did it without any Stockport County players, just to have a little dig at Sky as well. I was like, yes, get up there and get up with Jamie O'Hara.
It's I really can't understand why. Well, I do understand the reasons for that these companies do it. It's the whole thesis for the likes of TalkSport, etc., to sort of have these types of people.
Rage bait, man.
It's effectively it. It's just basically trying to get a reaction out of people to generate sort of revenue.
It's an attention economy. We live in.
Well, you'll look at Twitter. Any time I see someone say something controversial on Twitter, and if they've got you really want to type and reply to them, as soon as I see they've got a blue tick, I'm like, no, because that's what they want. They want replies.
Yeah, 100%. It's just complete nonsense, isn't it? It's just really, really daft when you see that sort of thing. I thought John McGinn's interview was funny as well. Just for him to be straight away like, we were absolutely rubbish. Like, just that's a good thing about John McGinn that I really like, just how comfortable he is in terms of just sort of calling it as it is. Yeah. So this must have been a nightmare for him, but I'm sure he made up for it when he was caught up with the rest of them afterwards anyway. I'm really delighted about it. It's just great. As I know that you said it, Carol, but like the social media side, it's just great to see people happy, because there's so much in the world at the moment where you look at people and what's going on in life, and like obviously it's tough for so many people with everything that's going on, and the news coverage.
On Tuesday night, I had a back-to-back, so there was the friendly between Catalonia and Palestine.
Yeah.
And just during that match, just some of the stories and some of the thing, and then it finished at 8:30. I had 15 minutes, and then starting the Scotland. I was an emotional wreck by the end. Just going from thinking of like football is a great sport and this is a fantastic thing that's happening with Catalonia and the País Basco, and then just the ending with the Scotland game. Yeah, football is a wonderful thing.
It really, really is. So let's get on to what we're actually meant to be talking about. I'll probably get cuffed on the ear by someone for saying that we spent the best part of 45 minutes talking about Scotland, but I don't really care. We're going to a World Cup and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. We're going to have a great time, and yeah, just such a positive experience for good. So yeah, let's look ahead to Saturday. Before we do that, yeah, just some of the coverage that's been mentioned. Allan, just to come to you firstly, a rather left field bit of reporting suggesting that Stephen McInnesby chucked his name into the ring for the managerial role, indicating that he was keen to relocate from Baton Rouge, I believe, over in Louisiana. Club legend, but quickly dismissed by the Courier in a sort of battle of the newspapers, shall we say. Maybe I'm bigging it up too much, but just one where nostalgia ruling for that one, do you think, maybe?
I don't even know where that came from. I suspect somebody on some... I mean, I've not seen it on Pie and Bovril, I've not seen it on Twitter or anything, but like, where's that come from, seriously? Because he's not managing at any kind of real level. I think he's coaching kids or something like that, and by all accounts, a really massive kind of kids set up down there in Louisiana. But yeah, it seems like, to me, it seems like one of these ones where somebody's put a rumour somewhere and it's just been picked up by, a newspaper, and they've just kind of run with it because they thought, well, why the hell not? Because, it gets clicks on websites and things like that, and helped by McInnesby himself on Facebook, kind of almost suggesting like, oh yeah, this would be revolutionary. Give it to a guy who's done things, not just the usual merry-go-round. It's like, aye, all right, mate. And it was. I don't think there was ever anything in it. I don't think he was ever under even any kind of consideration by the club, unless he's actually sent his CV in which case they'd have gone, nah, you're all right. It was just bizarre. Just strange.
Undoubtedly a club legend. But yeah, I think that I suspect you're right. It was quite the reaction to it was very like, they can't really be considering this, and it's like, well, there's no indication that they are considering it. So I think we all just need to calm our jets a little bit and just take a wee step back and just remember anyone can send their CV in. And I said this sort of in our group chat. I would love to see a list of who's applied for the job as a fan. Just because if you gave me a non-disclosure agreement, I'll happily sign it. I'll not give anything away, and just to see, because I would reckon that some of the names in there would be absolutely wild, and people would be very surprised. But the Courier were saying that Paul Hanlon, Scott, is almost certain to be in the role, remaining in the interim for this Saturday against Arbroath. But they're continuing to link Rhys McCabe to it. Now, you've not had an opportunity to be on the podcast since Barry Robson's moved on, or been moved on from his role. Just your thoughts on, firstly, Barry Robson's departure, and also as Rhys McCabe. Do you think he's the right profile, the right type of person that we should be looking for in the circumstances?
I mean, firstly, with Robson, I think the first point I'll say is that I think it's quick to remember that people were, of course, this season it wasn't going well, but I think people need to remember what happened last season as well in terms of what a decent job he did to begin with. I mean, he came in to us right at the start of January and was kind of under a fair bit of pressure straight away. We were asking him to basically get us out of our relegation battle, which currently it's starting to look that way this season. But it was not looking great last season. He managed to help put a run together. He brought in a couple of lads. I mean, Doherty then came into the team as well. Obviously, it wasn't a Robson signing, but still he put him in the team, and we went on that great run and almost remarkably even made it into the promotion playoffs. But yeah, this season, just for whatever reason, in the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks has just been not good enough. I mean, it just. I was somebody that was keen to get Robson in. Even when Ian Murray was sacked, Robson's name was linked, and I even said at that time I thought he'd done a decent enough job at Aberdeen to be in consideration anyway for our job. And a lot of people, I thought when we hired Robson, he was very 50-50 with the fan base. It was kind of split on who liked him and who didn't, and even like whether we won or lost, it was just constantly the same every week of who liked him and who didn't, and it just week by week, month by month, it just started to get worse and worse. I mean, I don't think he helped himself in terms of his interviews and stuff like that. And I know some people take the interviews a lot more serious as a fan than others do as well. I mean, we've got people like Blair on the podcast who just very rarely even bothers listening to them, which is obviously everybody does their own thing. I listen to most of them. I wouldn't say I listen to them all, but at the same time, I also don't think that it's, especially the post-match ones, I find them quite difficult to listen to a lot of the time because it's like these guys have probably been pulled in less than an hour after the game and they've probably not even looked back on half the stuff that went on in the game, and they'll probably say stuff and straight away they get clipped up on loads of stuff. But then there is games where you're just going, just stop talking, because you're just, everybody's going to get on your back because you're just not seeing what the fans are seeing, which is what Ian Murray had on his side in terms of he was kind of saying what the fans were thinking, which made him straight away likeable. But so I think that it was eventually the right thing to do was to part ways with Robson. I'd openly said that I would have given him the Airdrie game anyway to kind of see what happened. Obviously, the club decided that they didn't want to do that and that they had to part ways when they did. In terms of McCabe, I think he's the name that seems to be quite popular just now amongst quite a few fans. I would be open to trying it. I think he done a pretty decent job at Airdrie in terms of he got them up, and then in their first season, I know that most of the teams that come up for League One seem to have that sort of promotion bounce and they're still in sort of good form and just a good vibe about the club and stuff. So they ended up finishing fourth in their first season, and you thought, well, he's clearly doing a really good job on a pretty small budget, I would imagine, as well. But then it kind of went downhill, and then he seemed to leave because he wasn't getting maybe the funds or whatever to go and get a few players that he claimed he needed. But yeah, I think for me anyway, if going forward, I think there's only really two guys that I would be interested in for the job that I can think of off the top of my head that have been in jobs in recent times or are currently in jobs, and it would be Rhys McCabe and Gary Naismith at Stenhousemuir. And again, he's a name that's been heavily linked and done a very good job at Steny, to be fair. I know he was given a shot, obviously, at Queen of the South in the Championship before. I don't think he necessarily done great there, but at the same time, that was also quite a long time ago. You don't know what sort of budget he's working with there as well at that time and stuff. So I'd be keen to see whether we would go for him as well. Other than that, I think you're kind of struggling for who else we could go for. My biggest worry, I suppose, with this is I do not want to get to day 30 again like we did the last time and still looking for a manager, because we're at the point in the season that already the fans are starting to kind of lose a lot of patience right now. And I mean, I will say, watching the game and the highlights back again, that was the emptiest I've seen the South Stand even before the end of a game for a long time. I mean, I could see all four letters of RRFC, and that was ridiculous. Like, when you think about it, it wasn't even, I think there was still 5-10 minutes to go in the game. So I think it's already clear to see that the fans are starting to lose their patience. Now, I don't want the club to just go hire somebody instantly. I mean, they haven't done that because it's now been over a week anyway, but I'm hoping before the Scottish Cup tie against Allan that we've got somebody in the door, because they're going to need at least a month to look at the squad and help with the recruitment team to go and try and find players in January. Because, I'm sorry, we just do not have the tools currently that are going to get us anywhere near the playoff spots as it's going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with that, you mentioned Gary Naismith, and it probably does bear sort of worth mentioning and remembering that different managers are going to be in different circumstances with each individual club that they go to. I think you make a really good point there, Scott. You look at Queen of the South, and I would probably think that when he was there, which looking back on Wikipedia was between 2016 and 2019. I mean, I don't know if they had Stephen Dobie back then, but I think that probably covers up a multitude of sins when you've got a player of that calibre coming in a sense of you can have him as a focal point, and then if you're running on a lower budget, maybe the lower quality's sort of masked up a little bit. So I think that Naismith, I mean, he's won a couple of promotions before. He won one with East Fife, and then he went on to Queen of the South, spent a little bit of time out the game before going to Edinburgh City and then back to off to Stenhousemuir. He's a name that I think the thing about Rhys McCabe, and I'll come to you about this, Alan, just your thoughts on it. Firstly, your thoughts on because conveniently you've not all been on since Barry Robson's left his job. Your thoughts on Barry Robson's departure, but also Rhys McCabe, maybe questions there over the Concilium links with Airdrie, because that was something that felt like it was quite a big deal with Airdrie that they had that tie-up. It wasn't officially recognised right until the end of McCabe's tenure, but that linking with, I think Jackie McNamara I might be wrong about this, but his father-in-law or something like that, and that's the agency that Jackie McNamara's run. Would that maybe be a bit of a worry for you, or do you think that he gets away with it given the sort of tactical foundations that he had at Airdrie, the style of play that they had? Sorry, this is a very, very loaded question for a light-hearted Scottish football podcast, and just the way that things panned out there.
I would say with loaded questions like that, do you write fan emails for Queen's Park or something? No, in terms of Robson, I mean, I think the last time I was on was, I think, after the Queen's Park game, and I think, like everyone who was on there, I made it quite clear that I thought it was time for Robson to go. He definitely lost the fan base. You know, yeah. I don't claim to know every Rovers fan. But I wasn't aware of anyone who was, still in his corner. And in my opinion, it looked like he had lost the dressing room. I've heard anecdotal evidence since then that backs that up. You obviously always have to kind of say, without hearing it from the horse's mouth yourself, you're never 100% sure. But certainly from watching the team, he'd lost them. And I just had no confidence in his ability to turn that around. Yeah, he'd get the odd result. We weren't going to lose every game for the rest of the season. But we were going to lose more than we were going to win, in my opinion, under Robson. Even looking now at the Airdrie game, folk might say, did we make the wrong decision? I have no doubt we'd have still lost that game if Robson was there. No doubt at all. Like, none. The game itself was just shite. There's no other kind of way of putting it. It was just shite. It's not even like it's typical Airdrie. It was just... There was just something not right about us on Saturday, and it's going to take a while to kind of get rid of all of the kind of bad feeling that was there. It's too easy to look at players smiling and laughing and training photos and kind of read a lot into that. I guarantee you, if you'd have taken photos of the team during training when Robson was there, even you'd have managed to get photos of them laughing and joking. They would have absolutely been there. I get what the social media team were doing. They're trying to kind of build up a positivity, and that's what they should be doing. You know what I mean? I have no issue with that. But I don't think there's any doubt that we made the right call getting rid of him. In terms of who comes in, you're kind of right in what you're saying that McCabe is probably the leading contender among the fans. By all accounts, going by kind of the Courier and what have you, he's certainly on the list of guys that the club are considering. And I think they kind of suggested in that article, I think it was in the Courier, that McCabe had actually applied for it. So it wasn't just that we were sounding him out. It's the way they worded it. It sounded like he's kind of put his name forward for it. In terms of him as a manager, I like the way he plays the game. in terms of passing, exciting, attacking football. I'd like to think he'd have, even with our squad as it is, he'd have more assets at his disposal than he had at Airdrie. The Concilium thing's a bit weird. If anything, I think it probably held him back more than anything else. It might be quite nice for him to come in and actually have, have the whole of Scottish football, if you like, to go with, rather than just who's under Jackie McNamara's kind of agency. There must have been times where he was thinking, "Oh, I'd quite like that, but I can't go because I've got to pick out the Concilium brochure," which I believe that it is actually a thing. There is like a brochure or a website or somewhere you can go through and see who's under their agency, and there's some pretty big names under there. For what I can't remember any off the top of my head, but so I think it'd be quite interesting to see how he gets on without that there. And you know what? I'd probably still register him as a player as well. Why not? He's only about 33 or something like that. He wouldn't even be our oldest defender. He'd be quite a handy option to have sitting on the bench, especially for games like Saturday where we only had 5 or whatever, and 5 outfield players, and one of them by all accounts wasn't actually fit enough to play anyway. So it kind of adds that in. I suppose the biggest concern for me would be just how badly did him and Callum Fordyce fall out. It's their family, so they've had plenty of time since then to kind of get over any of that. Was it even the reason Fordyce left in the first place? Who knows? You can only go on kind of rumours and what have you. But yeah, I mean, certainly McCabe would be, the options I've seen talked about, he would be my kind of leading candidate, if you like. Albeit I wouldn't necessarily, I would be pretty happy with Naismith as well.
Yeah, for me, I fully agree with McCabe. I mean, I've sort of mentioned the Concilium link there. When I'm looking at it, I would think that, now, again, contentious subject, but John Potter at the moment came under a bit of flack and with regards to the recruitment, and that's been exacerbated by the results and the setup of the team and the way that we are and the profile of some of the sort of maybe the lack of profile that we've got with some areas on the pitch, which, again, each individual will have their own perspectives on it. I think I would be quite keen to see whether we use the Concilium link as another sort of string to the bow, and we go, okay, well, we've got that, and then we can use this as well, or whether it would be a case of it's sort of whether Rhys McCabe sort of says, I'm wanting this player, we go out and we look for them, and then it's more that sort of the relationship that we've seen previously before with sort of managers and John Potter and the sort of scouting network that we've got. So, I mean, that would be one to definitely keep an eye on if it does come in. Carol, do you think that's one? Again, we'll ask for your reaction to Barry Robson sacking, because I'm kicking the arse out of that spectacularly. But also as well, do you think the board are maybe under a bit of a pressure in terms of, because of the way, stylistically that Robson had us playing? I mean, Dylan Easton was recently in the Courier, he was talking about, or in the press even, talking about the style and how that changed, even from going from playing under Neil Collins, where it was the style that he had us and try to look for the sixes as such, look for the midfielders, playing the ball out from the back, to the more direct, numbers-based, try to get the players up the pitch after playing a lot more directly under Barry Robson. Do you think maybe the board are under a bit of a pressure to sort of find a manager that's in that profile, and maybe under the sort of understanding, okay, if we can do that, we can maybe try and get people back into Starks Park, maybe get them enjoying their football a bit more? Or do you think that's a bit of a dangerous game given the sort of situation that we're in?
I think we're not going to be flooded with players come the transfer window at Christmas. Unless someone wins the lottery or donates a large amount of money, we're not going to have a huge amount. So we need to get a manager that's going to get the best out of the team. And I think with Robson, he didn't get the best out of the team. And maybe the team didn't bring the best out in Robson. His tactics are not suited to those players. So we need to maybe think of what manager fits our players than what name we want, or what style we want, or what person is going to give the best interview. And also, I always find it strange in football. There's lots of names mentioned of people who've been sacked or people who've lost their jobs. I think we want someone who's doing a good job at the moment. So let's go and poach.
I think that's hard to find. Gold dust segue here, because people that are doing well at the moment, Scott, Arbroath's management team of David Gold and Colin Hamilton. Have you been surprised to see how Arbroath, generally been very consistent in the league this season? A few small slip-ups, including the game at Starks Park and when they got trounced by Dunfermline up at Gayfield. But they're the first team to beat St Johnstone this season. What have you made about their form since that game at Starks Park?
Arbroath have been excellent this season. I think they've surprised everyone a fair bit, just the fact that they've came up from League One, and I think everybody openly said, right, a good successful season for Arbroath is just going to be safety, and it always is for the club that tends to come up, but at the same time, especially when you're a part-time club, that's always going to be the aim as well. Obviously, we did see Arbroath just a few years ago going for the league with Kelly, and that was also a shock at the time, but I think just with these two lads that have taken on the job last season, they clearly did a good enough job last season to get them winning that League One title. And then to continue that on, and they've not exactly went and signed household names, or it's not like they've splashed any money around, or it's like they've been very smart with the players they have signed, but they've also been good in the loan market. Arguably their best player right now is the boy they've got on loan for Aberdeen and Finlay Marshall, who's been involved in basically half of the goals that they've scored this season. And obviously that's the same. You can say the exact same for Dylan Easton for us. He's been involved in 50% of the goal contributions for us. But I think with them, they just seem to have a sort of style and a game plan that works for them. And they don't really veer too far off it. Apart from, it seems to be with Arbroath this season, if they take the lead in a game, they tend to get a result out the game. If they go behind, it tends to be they don't really get a result out the game. So it's kind of hit and miss with them, although at home, Gayfield's always been known as a really tough place to go and get a result, no matter if you're in good form or not, and we're going into not in great form at all, so it's probably not the best of times to be going up there. Also, it's coming up to the end of November. I'm sure the weather's not going to be great for Saturday either, but I do think that David Gold and Colin Hamilton have been doing a great job up there and continue to do so. So I think we're in for a really tough game. They've lost one game at home this season, and that was to Dunfermline, and it was a freak result, the fact that it was 5-0 as well. So I don't... Do I expect us to go and do that to them? No. But I'm hoping just that we can get some sort of performance up there, because I fear if we were to lose on Saturday again, that we're really on a proper downward slope to big issues if we lose that convincingly anyway on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll turn our attention to the Rovers. Just Allan, Scott's mentioned the potential for sort of any hangover going in after this, depending on the result. Now, I'd imagine that most of the Rovers support are on, strangely, a bit of a high at the moment, given the Scotland result. Does that offer an opportunity for maybe everyone to potentially reset their perspectives, or do you think it's a case where you've got to keep the two of them separate, and that it's hard to sort of really sort of correlate them and say, actually, we can use this as a bit of a break?
No, I think you're probably right in that there'll be an awful lot of folk who on Saturday, Sunday, Monday were thinking, no way, I'm going up to bloody Arbroath next week. It's going to be freezing cold. We're going to get beat. Nah. And then Tuesday happened, and folk will have, it's kind of feel reinvigorated and just kind of almost fell in love with football again, and it's like, no, I need more of this. I'm going. Let's go. Come on, we can do it. So I think there'll definitely be an element of that. As Scott kind of alluded to, the first goal was massively important because you talked about how important it is for Arbroath. In the league this season, we've got 1 point from when we conceded the first goal, and that was the first game of the season against Queen's Park. And Morton at home is the only time we've not won when we've scored the first goal. So in the league, so it's massively important for us to get off to a good start. And when Sean Byrne does a Scott McTominay style overhead kick at the North Sea end of the ground, it's going to be absolutely glorious. The ball will hold up in the wind long enough for him to get up there to get it, anyway, that's for sure.
It's a week of miracles. Why not dream?
Yeah.
It would be amazing when it's for first goal in 7 years is an overhead kick for 25 yards or something like that.
Sean, if Sean Byrne is in a position where he's getting any goal, I will celebrate that probably as wildly as I did almost the McTominay goal. I want Sean Byrne to score very, very badly for Raith Rovers Football Club because I think he's an excellent player and he would deserve it. It would just be really good to see him get off the mark. Just to come to yourself there, Carol, do you think, is there any sort of pressure with Paul Hanlon in terms of this interim role? Obviously, the last week was very, very off in the sense of the performance and the result. Rovers, of course, did create some chances throughout the game, but do you think Paul Hanlon will benefit from having that extra week to be able to sort of get at the players in training, trying to imbue a message into the squad about this sort of change in philosophy and hopefully potentially a change in mindset as well?
Yeah, I mean, he had 4 days. It was announced Tuesday that he was going to be the manager. 4 days is a long time for Hanlon to get his head around what's happening and also the squad. And I think if Robson had completely lost the dressing room, it would have been a bigger turnaround, I think, on Saturday. Whereas I think that it was not so much the dressing room was lost, it was just the dressing room was down. So maybe Hanlon needs to bring them up again. And I think the Scotland match, if you don't love football and if you don't love Scottish football after Tuesday night, don't bother going. I mean, I was one of those people, I hated it. I was like, why am I doing this? Why do I do this? Why is my entire personality and my entire weekend ruled by what 11 men do on a pitch?
Yeah.
I'm a 44-year-old woman. I should know better than this. But no. Every week I go head first into this. And that's is that if we're feeling happy and up for it, surely the players are feeling happy and up for it. Go for it. Have fun.
It's the romanticism of the game, isn't it? It's exactly why you keep going back for more and more and more, and you see that so often. Like how often have you thought about games and then you're like, no idea why I do this every other weekend, and then all of a sudden something happens and you see that. So yeah, it'd be great if they could build on it. But Scott, just going into this again, historically at Gayfield, I mean, a real mixed bag in terms of some of the results. We've had some games up in there in winter where we've actually done really well. Remember the Danny Armstrong free kick, etc., where Arbroath had been on a tear up the top of the league. We've had draws up there, I think, when they had Joe Newbley in a big battle against Christoph Berra. Right before Christmas, but also as well, you think a couple of seasons back, the ball getting caught in the lights with Big Kev. Just a real mixed bag there in terms of the round to go to Gayfield for Rovers fans.
As I said earlier on, it is just a notoriously difficult ground to go to and get results. But as you say, we have had a mixed bag of positive and negative results up there. I do think that Arbroath, the players seem to, whoever they sign every season, after the first couple of games that they probably get at Gayfield, it seems like they just seem to be able to settle into whatever conditions is going to be up there a lot quicker, which is natural because you're supposed to, most week anyway, that you're every second week you'll be at home. So they're obviously going to get that more often than what the team that's coming up to play is going to get. So it's going to take us to probably adapt to whatever conditions it is on Saturday. I've not even looked to see what it's meant to be on Saturday, but it's November, it's Scotland. I can probably assure you there'll be some wind and there'll be probably some rain at some point. So I think we've just got to kind of even forget what's going on sort of weather-wise and just have to play the game as it is. And I think, well, one thing, if it is windy, we've got to play the ball on the deck. And if we do play the ball on the deck, we've got the players there to be good at that. It's just whether we've got the confidence to go and give that sort of game plan going forward and actually take the game to Arbroath. Because as I say, Arbroath, if they sniff any weakness in us on Saturday, they'll be just going for us straight away. Because they're the sort of team that just, as soon as they're sort of, they've got a steam ahead, they just go for it. And I mean, for instance, I think when they scored against St Johnstone, they went and got 2 or 3 straight after that, like off the bat, and it seemed to be once they get one, that's them, that they're on the roll. So I think we've got to be careful with that. On Saturday, as I say, I highlighted Finlay Marshall earlier. They've also got loads of other decent players, but he's just the one that stands out. Just the fact that he's got 7 goals this season, and he's a youngster as well. So I think he's somebody that we've got to keep an eye on. But they've also got players like Ryan Dow, who on his day still a pretty decent player. So yeah, well, we all know what he can do as well. But although he does seem to have been pretty quiet this season for them, so I don't know.
Did he get off the bench the last game?
I'm not sure. I've not seen
track at that.
I think he did.
I think he did. 'Cause I was listening out for the boos when they announced his name. But
My my preparation for this game was very heavy on the Scotland side.
Yeah, but as I say,
because while you were talking, I checked. It's going to be 5 degrees, gusts of wind of 30 kilometres per hour, and rain. So yes, got your predictions right.
For Scotland, it's November.
Kilometres, so wildly different depending on who you ask.
Well, wind is 15, but gusts of 30.
Ah, right, okay. Well, we'll see how.
But anyway, just the ball on the deck. That we didn't really have the players to be going and playing, lumping the ball up. That was kind of the issue that people had with the way that we were playing under Robson. So, and to touch on what was said before as well, in terms of Hanlon only having a couple of days, 3 training sessions or whatever with the team, I do understand that. I'm keen to see this week, when he's had a full week of training, if anything's changed, because my worry watching that game on Saturday, I was saying to myself, I don't know if anybody else was saying, I know I spoke to my dad and he was saying similar, there didn't seem to be really anything changed amongst the team, and yet the team were saying they weren't enjoying how they were playing under Robson. So that was actually something I was instantly thinking would have changed, no matter if you've had one training session or not, that you wouldn't be doing what you were doing under Robson, and we seem to refer to that very quickly against Airdrie. And for some reason, well, I mean, it wasn't working because it's not been working before. The fact that we don't have the players to play that sort of style of game. So
I think the difficulty is that you've not got enough time to do different training drills and kind of different styles of set piece, and so you can probably pick 2 or 3 things. Like I think at one point with a free kick, and Rovers did this weird thing where like 4 of them all kind of lined up, one behind the other, right on the edge of the box, and then they all ran off in different directions, which is obviously a thing that I've not seen before. So he's probably had to pick 1 or 2 things that he could do differently, just because of how much time they had to kind of develop the drills and what.
You touched on there. I think it's probably easy to set up like new set pieces and stuff like that. I think that's probably quite quickly fixed. If Hanlon, I mean, he's one of the ones that's going to be in amongst set pieces all the time anyway. Yeah. So who had to kind of be leading that, I suppose, to know what he wants from a set piece and that sort of stuff. But yeah. I do think in terms of the game style and game plan, I do want to see a change this week in terms of how we're playing, because and I know that Hamilton's came in for a lot of stick, and I've even given him plenty of stick in the last couple of weeks especially, but we're just not playing to anybody's strengths in recent weeks, and that's, well, I'd say massively part of why we're doing so poorly. Yeah. I know that we're kind of down to the bare bones in terms of squad size as well just now. We've not really been told when Vaughan's going to be back. I know we keep clinging on, hoping that he's going to be back fit again soon, but we do need somebody's back soon. So I really hope that we can get somebody back, maybe this week or even for the Alloa Scottish Cup game. But yeah, it's going to be a tough ask on Saturday. So if you offered me a point now, I would take it on Saturday.
I suspect that Allan is currently probably doing the same thing that I'm doing, which is just to see, because I think that Wales under 19s played 2 days ago. So Josh Gentles would have been involved with that to some degree, I would imagine. So I would expect that he's back up the road with Rovers, and whether that offers us an alternative option, I don't know. I do find it intriguing. You mentioned obviously Jack Hamilton. Again, I've been critical on here quite openly about that before, but I did find it. We obviously mentioned the Scott Brown sort of the bit that was in the paper. Now, Ian Collin, who writes for the Courier for the 5 teams, he was sort of saying, because it came across, I think a lot of Rovers fans took that on board as being like he's having a go at the team or at the fans, which you can understand that perspective given the sort of content of it and what had been mentioned. But I think as well, the main part that I took from it was the sort of self-criticism of like, we know that the standards haven't been good enough. But that was what I sort of was touching upon earlier on when I mentioned the sort of Robertson interview with you. I'm not sort of comparing it to the vastly different circumstances. One's an underperforming team where the fans are sort of calling out one bit of a specific interview. The other's, as you rightfully said, Scott, a horrendous sort of set of circumstances. In terms of, so you probably could have framed the sort of original question better. But just when we're talking about it, like you look at the Robertson situation, you think about what Scott Brown's mentioned as well. And again, I think there's that aspect where being able to mix up squad, I think we do suffer because of the lack of personnel in terms of what we've got available. I think that's, again, it probably does come back to the recruitment. It's probably a fair criticism to make in terms of who's there and the options that we've got to change it up. But yeah, just to sort of, I can get where Scott Brown's coming from in the sense that, like, you just hope that, again, that we can stick with the players and that we can get that bit of belief. And I hope that the international break has offered that for them, that they can sort of come back going into this weekend and maybe people are a bit more enthusiastic. Again, we all want the team to do well. It's not born out of a want for specifically slaughtering players. Maybe Scott Brown, he's an individual, he's a human, he'll have his own experiences of that. He'll be able to maybe say differently as to like whether he feels that way. But ultimately, we want the team to do well. So hopefully, we rightfully, as you say, like we get something positive to cheer about going forward, and that we can sort of move through this. So yeah, I think you're well within your rights to sort of flag that up. Because again, Jack Hamilton will probably fall into that category where he's got a lot going on at the moment in terms of the pressure. You never know what someone's going on away from the pitch as well. But again, you can understand why there has been the criticism. So I think it's a difficult one being on a podcast because you want to find that balance of like, okay, there are some things that we do need to talk about. We don't want to just sit here and be like, nah, they're all absolutely perfect, because it doesn't work that way. But at the same time, we want to try and support as much as possible. Did anyone actually do a lineup for this game? I didn't even bother. I was too excited to talk about the Scotland game.
I've not, but I've kind of been thinking about it while you guys were talking there. And fun enough, you were almost right with what you said. When clearly it was obvious I was looking at my phone, but no, I was looking to see if Gentles had scored any goals against Arbroath last year for Alloa, but unfortunately he didn't. Because that is one change I would make, and it's not about. You know what? I've been as critical of Hamilton as others have. I've maybe given him a wee bit more slack than others have up until the last week or so. But I think it's as much about one taking him out of the firing line, giving him a break from it, but also just showing them that he does actually have some real competition there. That if he's not performing well enough, he's going to get dropped, and someone's going to come in and take his place because. I think you need that, and we just don't really have anyone else. I mean, you could arguably put Smith up there, but I'd like to see Gentles get a really kind of good run out. By the same token, I would also leave Scott Brown out because he has been really poor recently. By his own, normally very high standards. I'm a massive fan of Scott Brown. both as a guy. Never met him, but from the way he speaks and in his interviews and stuff, he comes across as a really good guy. And he is a decent championship midfielder. He's not been great this season. I think Airdrie was potentially his poorest performance I've seen for us. And again, I think he's someone who just maybe needs. He wouldn't say it himself. He'd say he's absolutely ready to go, but I think he just needs taken out of the firing line for a while, and also showing that there's competition there. So I'd go with a bold move. He's been playing as a 10, so replace him with someone who might actually be a 10, and I'd stick Kai Montague. And I realise I'm putting an awful lot of youth and experience up front, but why not?
Yep.
I'm still really unconvinced by Niso. So I'd potentially be going 4-2-3-1. I'd keep Mullen and Easton in the kind of wide areas of the three. I'd like to see Byrne and Matthews in there if Matthews is back. I'm not 100% convinced by Niso, and also I'm not sure how likely it is when he's best mates as the manager. But I'd drop Stevenson after last week as well. Again, someone who I think has not had a great couple of games, and I could maybe do with just coming out of the team for a game, and I'd put Wilson in there. Now, I'm sure plenty of people are shouting at me saying, "What you doing? These guys are rubbish." But good thing is I'm not the one picking the team, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that's definitely in the remit, Paul.
And I'd keep George Ray in goals, obviously.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Carol, did you do a lineup at all, or were you?
No, I was too involved in the Scotland game,
Yes.
and I think my only input on the lineup is just tell everyone just what are you good at, and go do that. Because I think Hamilton, it's lobbing it up to him is not how he's going to score goals. So it's, I agree with he needs to come out the firing line, but I think he's not getting what he needs. So I don't know whether to drop him or to give him that sort of go out there and do what you're good at.
What you've just done there, Carol, is the Football Manager game offers you the Ask Assistant button, and that is what you have just done. You've just hit that button. You've just let the assistant take control. They really need to release a director of football management, albeit judging off the most recent effort, I wouldn't bother with SI because it's a buggy mess. But Scott, for you, what are you thinking in terms of the lineup? Just your perspective on it.
I was thinking about it earlier on today, like what formation or what sort of personnel I would go with, and I genuinely I would go 4-4-2. I want to see us actually try two up front for the start, because we've not really done that at all. Again, it's something different. It's probably something that Arbroath wouldn't expect. So why not try something currently? I mean, I think it's safe to say Paul Hanlon isn't going to be getting this job full time. I don't think he is anyway. So I mean, for him just now, try something different. See what works, because at the end of the day, Paul Hanlon's still going to be in our team, whoever comes in to the job, because he's arguably one of our best players right now. So I would go 4-4-2. I would be sort of the same sort of usual back four: Doherty, O'Connor, Hamlin, and Stevenson. My two in the middle. I know that I do agree to a certain extent that Scott Brown probably does need to be dropped, but I would say I would only do it if Matthews is fit. If Matthews isn't fit, I'd keep Brown in there, and I would put Byrne in beside him. And on the right hand side, I would have Mullen, and then on the left, Easton, and I would go Gentles and Hamilton up top. You could potentially play a 4-4-2 where you have McMullen up there with Hamilton. We've done it early in the season, albeit it was with Easton and McMullen, and we had a little bit of success with it. But I think Gentles is a bit more of a sort of, from what I know, we've seen very limited of him, but he seems more of like an actual striker, whereas McMullen's a bit a guy who just buzzes about. He's a natural winger, so he kind of wants to naturally drift wide. I want two strikers that are going to be giving centre-halves a problem, whether that's physically or just tactically in terms of runs in behind, coming short, playing 1-2s with the midfield. I just want to see different because, as I say, last week I just saw too much of the same stuff as we've seen for weeks now, and I was hoping that one thing, whether we won the game or not last week, it was I just want to see different, and I didn't see enough different for my liking. So I hope this week that we have had a full week of Hanlon being able to put something different together, whether that is two up top or whatever, but just I do want to see something different come Saturday.
Yeah, I didn't get along last weekend, but I thought one thing that stood out for me was the chatter among people about sort of when players came on and sort of the impact that they had. Sort of J. Rowe, I think, in particular, stood out. I listened to the post-match podcast and about how he was up in the box winning sort of headers, and that was obviously different as well. I think it was the same for Paul McMullen as well, coming on and offering a bit. So, yeah, keen to see the direction that Paul Hanlon takes with it.
I did like Rice's idea playing Rowe up front, to be honest. Like, why not?
I mean, you know what? It's not off the cards. We've seen other right backs go to centre forward before, so you know, I would love it if we came out this international sort of break or this international window that's came through, and people the changes I mentioned as to whether we can have that sort of that rejuvenation as such. Keen to see what happens in terms of the manager and where the direction that leads to. It would be fantastic if we went up to Arbroath and got a result. It's 100% going to be a different game. I don't think anyone expects anything otherwise. But yeah, we will see how that goes. It's obviously getting late for our European contingent on the continent. But Carol, did you prepare a Should McStay or Should Dargo for us?
I have, and I've gone for easy clues. Okay, so it's not going to be which part of the planet are we on, or are we even in the solar system?
Right.
So
we'll speed through this.
Numero uno, I am a legend.
On a leg
What's the
in.
first clue? I am a legend. Oof. Should McStay.
Gordon Dale.
Just because he's been in the news, let's just go Stephen McInnesby.
Caveat, according to Wikipedia, because that's basically where everything has come from. According to Wikipedia, I have paid for 12 clubs.
I thought you said paid for 12 clubs, and I was like, just a golf bag slung over their shoulder.
Ali Graham.
I don't think Dale's had 12 clubs. It's funny because I could go through plenty of players, and I'm sure there's been 12 clubs, but it's just about finding the right profile for the person that's doing the clues, isn't it? Like, obviously, we've all gone for like classic Rovers, like Jason Dare. I don't think he'll have had 12 clubs, but you know, we run with it.
Just trying to figure out like who's been an answer and who's no, and would we go back to one?
Scott, were you were saying last time that your dad got it first time round, didn't he? Was it?
Aye, but like it was one of the ones, to be fair, it was one of the ones that just if it came to you, it came to you with a clue. Like,
yeah,
because I think it was not just the games and the goals was the first clue, and he just he was like it just felt right for Zanata. So fair enough.
Barry was a lovely lad, but he doesn't fall into the category of a legend. I think it's safe to say.
I'm going more to yeah, not quite as far back as that, obviously, but I don't know. John Baird.
My senior career at Rovers, over 150 appearances and over 30 goals.
Was that 30 goals?
Yeah, over 30 goals.
Over 30.
I'm just going to stick with Baird.
Good shout, actually. I'm going now to the, was it Race Stats that did the thing about kind of like Rovers goal scorer, like how many goals it had. I think it was
since
in
the
the 21st century, isn't it? But so I think you're onto I'll stick with Ali Graham just because I think it might actually be John Baird, and I know Ali Graham's not scored 30 goals for Rovers.
I'm trying to remember if we had Ali Graham before.
I have a funny feeling we might have, but
Aye.
But yeah, I know because someone mentioned in our group chat fairly recently how many goals he'd scored.
I'm gonna go in and steal someone else's guess. I'm gonna go for Should McStay. Just to keep things ticking over.
Okay. Whilst playing for the Rovers, I had to make sure I had a passport.
She would guess is for international duty, but maybe they just like the trips to Magaluf.
It's funny how you went for international duty and I went for. I was thinking played for us in Europe, but.
Aye, that's the way I went, Allan. Just who played in Europe. The problem is, because that was all before I was even born. I don't know how many clubs a lot.
I think we might have had him already, but I'm going to go with Craig Dargo.
I'm going to go.
I don't know.
We've had Dargo before. I'm going to go with Colin Cameron.
Clue 6. I share my names with a cake and a cartoon.
Yeah, Colin Cameron, Colin the Caterpillar.
Yes. And of my 12 clubs, one of them included Burnt Island Shipyard as a trialist. I took the third penalty in the Coca-Cola shootout. I'm also loved by jam tarts.
Excellent. What was the cartoon?
Mickey Mouse.
Ah, right. Of course. No, I was thinking in terms of like the actual name. I didn't think of the nickname.
That's why it was names.
Right. Aye.
Share my names.
Fair dues. Not as egregious as thinking Marvin Andrews was from Edinburgh, but I'll still get ripped in the comments, which is absolutely fine by me, to be fair.
Hey, that could have been a small town in Trinidad, mate.
So, that's thank you guys, especially for Scott and Carol being so generous with your time, because I appreciate it. It's late over where you're staying. Thank you, of course, to everyone who's taken the time to listen. We will be back with a bit less of a Scotland-centric episode, hopefully on a bit more of a cheery note Rovers-wise compared to some of our more recent episodes. We'll, of course, be keeping an eye on all the news coming out of Starks Park and be back after the Arbroath game. But yeah, as ever, thank you for taking the time for listening, and we will see you for the next episode. Bye for now.